Hey, coming back at you again. This is K and J. What 5HT channel? What stands for World Health Academia and Times. And of course, you know that 5H is when we're dealing with the truth. The truth, uh, it hurts. The truth can be hard. The truth helps. Ultimately, it's healthy for you and it heals. That's if we apply it in our lives, right? Thank you for coming back at us. We today is Wednesday. Yeah, that's right. It's Wednesday, the fourth day of the week. Yeah, yeah, I said it. We're gonna talk about something very interesting on this topic. I kind of gave you a hint the last post that we did that we'll be discussing. We're gonna be diving more so now today. I'll say we're gonna be dealing with scripture. We're gonna be dealing with the book. And of course, I know there are people that have their issues with the book. However, we're going to keep it fair. There's been times when I haven't used it. There have been times when I only used maybe a couple of verses or two. Uh, However, today we will be going more into uh, what I call the inductive study on the first two verses in the book of Genesis, Genesis 1. And we're going to be doing this study because I say a lot of times the way we understand things and have understood it, I'll say, just speaking for myself, you know, we kind of did a lot of surface level stuff, in the beginning. God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved on the face of the waters. It says a whole lot just within those two verses. And especially if we went into the Paleo Hebrew meaning of those words, which are spiritual meanings, and it'll help you understand better of what the scriptures are actually saying to us rather than what we've been taught. I quit just saying we. I'm gonna quit saying we because I don't want to put everybody in this. I'm going to say according to the way I had been taught and was used to hearing all the time, and a lot of time it was surface level. But like I said, back in those days, if our mother said something, we took it for face value. We just believed it. She said God created earth, God created man. You didn't have to explain to me how or whatever. We just believe. However, this generation that we deal with today, I'm talking to my baby boomers and my Gen Xers, this generation of millennials and generation of Gen Z and the oncoming generation of Alpha. They just don't get it that way. We have to have we got to get a clear understanding with them. In other words, we have to be able to expound on what we just said in a way that it makes sense to them, in a way that they can just really envision it rather than it just being confusing. And they like, what did you just say? And how does that make sense? And then we can't make any sense out of it. That's why I say we're going to call this our inductive study of Genesis, first chapter, verse 1 and 2. In an inductive study, inductive meaning of relating to or employing mathematical or logical inductions. That's what this inductive study would be. It's of relating to or employing mathematical or logical induction. That means to make that in most cases that means making something plain. And that mathematical part, don't let it throw you off because the scriptures totally based on numbers. I mean, totally based on numbers, mathematical numbers, and it makes a difference. It means something. It means a lot, I'll say. So what we're doing here is we're going to go into Genesis, like I said, verse 1 and 2 in the first chapter. It says that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, just looking at this, and just taking it for face value, just looking at it. When we see that, if you look at it closely, I wonder, do you kind of get or see what I'm getting and seeing? We all know that it has been told, and which is true, that everything God made or created was good. And as we read throughout Genesis, we'll see that it bear witness of what I just said. It's like, take for instance, when God created the day and the night, and then he spoke light into existence, and he made the waters divide from the firmament and the mist of the waters from the ground. And that was like in Genesis, I would say, verses 1 through 8, and that covers the first and second day. And then by the time he got to the water and the land, which he created, and he made the water separate and divide from the land, and he called all that into play. We look at that and we'll see that happened in Genesis 1 and 10. It said, and God called the dry land earth, and gathered together the waters, and called he seas. And God saw that it was good. That's the first time it says that he saw something after he did, and it was good. But think about it. When the Spirit of God moved up on the face of the water, it tells us that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So it sounds like the earth was in chaos. So my question is, if we know everything God created is good, then how is it that if he created the earth, and verse 2 tells us that the earth was without form and that it was void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep? So that sounds like chaos to me. That sounds like total chaos. So we're trying to get some understanding out of this. If everything God does is good, and it is, then why was the earth, when the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water, why was the earth void and without form? Did something happen? Did God create the earth and something chaotic happened? And then he had to come back and reconstruct what he had already created? Because if he created the earth, the heavens and the earth, like verse 1 suggests, and that it was good, then why is verse 2 telling us that the earth was without form and void? Was the earth already here? Have you looked at this real good and asked yourself these questions that I'm doing now? Because that's when you're doing an inductive case study, these are the things you have to do. You have to think critically. You have to look at what you're reading. You have to look at how to apply this and how to make sense out of it. Remember, you got to have logical induction, and that's what we're talking about here. So if God create whatever he create and it is good, like even when he created the trees and the grass, in verse 11 and 12, he said that it was good. So that's the second time he said that it was good. And then he went on to create day and night, the sun and the moon. And in verse 1 and 18, he says it was good. So everything that he's creating, he's saying that it was good after he created it. And that was the fourth day. And then we roll on until him creating the fish, the birds, the creatures, the fowls of the air, the whales, and every moving creature that moves. And it say, I tell you what, let's just read verse 1 and 20, saying, God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that has life, and fowls that may fly above the earth and in the firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. After their kind. Now, everything after his own kind. And every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So every time he's creating, he see that it's good. And let's roll on over into verse 22 and 23. This is the fifth day. It's saying God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowls multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning was the fifth day. The evening and the morning was the fifth day. See, we do the evening and the morning backwards. We do it different. The evening and the morning was the fifth day. So in the Hebrew time frame with the lunar calendar, the day actually starts at 6 o'clock in the evening. And it rolls on over. And then the next day will start at 6 o'clock the next evening. But with all these different calendars that we created and all this confusion, once again, that we love to do to confuse the chosen people, the one that was supposed to be living according to his commandments, his statutes, and his laws. Most of the laws were changed and reconstructed by people. Yes, by people, throughout time. We already dealt with the Nicene Council and the Nicene Creed and Constantine and all of his hoopla, changing and reconstructing things. So that was just for free. So the evening and the morning was the fifth day. And then once we rolled into verse 24 and 25, it said, God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. Everything after its own kind. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God said that it was good. So he's going on just further creating now. Just and it's all good. Everything is good. And that was the fifth day. And then on the sixth day, this is what he said. We'll start at what? Do we want to start at verse? Let's just start at verse 26. We're still in the first chapter of Genesis. It said, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish, key word, the earth, and subdue it. That means you got to take control of it. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. That's what he did when he created man. And look at here, what he said in verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made. Behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So we know that male and female created on the sixth day. We know what he did on the seventh day. The seventh day he rested, he called it the Sabbath. He hallowed it, sanctified it, made it holy. And that we should also honor the Sabbath day, another topic, which we don't do. So I'm just saying, to stick with to stay on topic, we are dealing with the first two verses now, where it says that in the beginning God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So if all this creation and all this creating, and he saw that it was good, everything. And then the very last one, he said he saw that it was very good. He said, well, how many times did he say it was good? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then at the end he said it was very good. So on each day he said it was good. Each day of his creation he said it was good. And then and on that very last day he looked at everything and said it was very good. Now, like I asked myself, ask yourself this question. So if everything that God create is good and even deemed to be very good, then how is it that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep? That's verse 2. Now remember, verse 1 said, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. But now, all of a sudden, in verse 2, we're talking about how the earth was without form and it was void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. What happened to the it was good? That's my question. What happened to the it was good? I might leave this open for a minute because I said I'll be looking for comments, especially to those of us that understand and say we know scripture and that we've been studying and diving in this thing for years, a lot of years. Heard a lot of people talk and teach on these things. I've already told you my take and what I was told and how I viewed it. I'm telling you now. But when you start doing a closer study of scripture and actually listening and hearing what you're saying and reading and making understand and making sense out of it. Making sense out of it. Because that's what we're going to have to do if we're going to win Gen Z. If we're going to win Generation Alpha, we got to make sense out of it. We just can't tell them. I understand that's the way it worked with us. It doesn't work that way anymore. Reason being, they're being bombarded with all kind of information now. They being bombarded with so much information that'll debunk everything that we are trying to impart in their lives, everything that we're trying to get them to see, believe, and act on. They're being bombarded with all sorts of information. So if you can't make sense or make logical of what you're trying to say or get them to even believe, we're in this losing battle because our brother John Dewey and Francis Potter, they say they got our kids and they teaching our kids a form of humanism where they get to make the choice of what's right and wrong. And they do have the kids now. This is the educational system. They have them. I got kids in school right now, at school. And you think they teaching them what we're talking about right now? No, they're teaching them something totally different. They're teaching them far away from what some of the stuff that I just read. Even when he said that when God created man in his image, he said male and female created he them. We even got that battle going on in our classrooms today. How can you make some sense out of it? Creating everything after its own kind. So if the earth was void and without form, and darkness was on the face of the deep after it said that God created heaven and earth, have you fathomed in your mind or even thought, how does that happen? Or are we going in reverse? Is it that, and even if we went in reverse, let's say we went in reverse. Let's say we take verse 2 out and we say God created the heavens and the earth. And then we start talking about all the things and how he did it and that it was good. They may understand that a lot better. But with that verse 2 in there that separates everything, that said that the earth was without form, that it was void and darkness was on the face of the deep. The thinking minds that we have today with Generation Z and Alpha, they'll say, well, was the earth already here Was it already here? Because how did it get in such a chaotic state before he started to call everything in order? You probably never asked yourself that because it probably never made any difference anyway. Because we were the generation that just believed. It's not like that anymore. This is not a generation that just believe. You're going to have to sit them down just like the teachers and just like the instructors and just like the professors. Set them down and walk them all the way through the process of how we got to this point, how we come from one point to get to a whole nother point. Come on now. We got to be able to do it. And if we don't, that's when we lose our kids to Caesar. You remember? If you send your kids to Caesar to be taught and they come home acting like Romans, do not be surprised. Because that's what Caesar does. He teaches people how to become Romans. Okay, I did a lot of reading. I did it on purpose so we can see how the process that when God does create, when he creates something, it's good. I'm asking again. So why was the earth without form and void? And how did darkness be upon the face of the deep until the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters? And God said, let there be light. So he started calling the earth in order. Think about what I'm saying now. Think about it. Because I'm not making this up. It's right here in front of us. Think about what I'm saying. Think about it. All that was going on in verse 2, and then verse 3 said, and God said, let there be light. That's after the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters in all this chaos. So was the earth already here? That's my question again. Was it already here? And I'm not suggesting that he didn't create it. I'm asking a question. Had it been created and something happened to bring it in chaos, and then he had to come back and reconstruct it. Case in point, here we go. Since I'm a builder, maybe I can use this for an example. I say I'm going to build this house for you. So I build a house. I furnish the house. I make it ready. I make it turnkey ready. That means all you got to do is stick a key in the door, open the door, and just walk in, and everything is ready. So I build this house, and it's ready from the ground up. I mean, it's ready, and it's good, and it's very good. However, before I get to present the house to you so you can have dominion over it, yeah, so you can rule in it, yeah, storm come, blow the roof off, damage some of the inside. Now we got water damage everywhere. Got to replace the roof. Furniture, no good. It's been soaked by the torrential rain. It has to be replaced. So now I have to come back to make this house ready and livable again. Does that make sense to you? Does that make any sense at all? Okay, but here's the thing that I just suggested, and I also mentioned. I said I built the house. It was ready. It was turnkey ready. However, I see a storm came and dismantled the house. Then I had to come back and reconstruct it. Get where I'm going? I'm asking the question again. How did the earth get in a place that it was without form and that it was void and that darkness was upon the face of the deep until the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water and said, let there be light, and start calling things back into order. Remember what he said to man? Remember what he said to man when he created him? I mentioned it. Can we remember what he said to man when he created him? This is what he said in verse 26. He said, and God said, let us make man in our image, our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, and over the earth, and over all creeping things upon the earth. Right? That's what he said. That's what he said. He said, let them have dominion over. So that's what's going on. So if man had to gain dominion over the earth after God did all this reconstruction, further tells me something was going on. And he also said, let us make man in our image and our likeness. See, when you understand the Paleo-Hebrew meaning of words, scripture begins to make a whole lot of sense. And let me say this too, because I keep saying about the Paleo-Hebrew meaning of words. Let's get an understanding. Paleo-Hebrew is not a spoken language, it's a written language. I'm gonna say that again. Paleo-Hebrew is not a spoken language, it's a written language. The scribes, they used to write, and they wrote in parables. They wrote allegorical. They wrote when someone was saying things. They wrote the way they viewed it and how it should be applied. So Paleo-Hebrew is a written language. So once you understand the spiritual meanings of a lot of these words, a lot of this will start coming more plain to you. It'll be made more plain and you can understand it better. That's what I'll say. So here we go. I asked the question, when God makes stuff, he make it and it's good. And in in the last case, he said it was very good. What was wrong with the earth before the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water? What was wrong with the earth? How did it get like that? How did it become without form and void? How was darkness upon the face of the deep and God created it? I keep asking the question. Yeah. And we're going to work with that. We're going to work with it because we need to get some understanding out of this. And we need to know what scripture is actually saying and not guess it. Because in most cases, we just been preached that too long. We've been preached that so long and make it feel so good. Oh man, to only get no substance, to be so lost, and darkness is upon the face of the deep. And we become void. And we become without form because we depend on those to explain, expound on, make plain these words inspired by God that we call scripture, the Holy Bible, to where we can actually really understand it and explain it to our loved ones, to our kids, and to our children and our children's children, and they can continue to pass it on. We got to get there. We can't get there just staying at surface level. Sure, I read the Bible many times. That doesn't mean that you understand it. I read the Bible many times. I read it all, and then even still today, I can read and something just jumps off the page. But that's only with the meditation continually and making sense. And number one, precept: allow Scripture to interpret itself, and quit allowing a man to interpret it for you. It's right there. Precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. You might read something in Exodus that might point you to something in 1 Corinthians, that might point you something in Timothy, that might point you back to something in Matthews, that might point you back to something in Ruth, that might point you to something in Ezekiel, and then only that way it made sense. And then I see it. But if we continue to think that we can get this book and just start at Genesis and start reading until we get to the end, you can do it like that if you like. But I encourage you for your inductive studies, making it logical, you got to allow it to interpret itself. I'm going to keep suggesting that when the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water and the earth had already been created, it wasn't the creation that we read and day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, day six, everything was good. Even until the day six, it was very good. That wasn't in verse two. Verse two, something else was going on or something else had happened. We need to know. We need to know. Because when you get one of those Gen Zers and you get one of those Generation Alpha and they are asking you that question and you sitting there because pastor didn't talk about it, or the Sunday school teacher didn't talk about it, or those that are in charge of Wednesday Bible studies didn't talk about it, or when you get in your group studies, you all then discuss it, you won't be able to translate it to that little one. And then that little one will start searching. The little one will start believing more in being one with the universe. The little one will start believing more into Egyptology. The little one will start searching and searching and searching and even find yoga. The little one will find whatever it takes that makes sense to them because you couldn't make any sense out of what you was trying to teach them. Yeah, this is real. And we're going to keep going in further and further. And I refuse to turn around. Because if you're going to make it real, then let's keep it real. And if you're going to make it real, let's make it make sense. Logical. The relation of or relating to or of, whether it be mathematical or a logical induction. And right now we're not dealing with the mathematical. We will get there one day, but we're going to take it a step at a time. This is a journey that we asked you to go through with us. I'm continuing to leave it open because I can tell you this thing is bigger than what you think. It's bigger than what we've been told. So let's get ready. Grow up. Can't be babes on milk. What does Isaiah 28? What does Isaiah 28 says to us? What does it say? What does Isaiah 28 say? Let's start with 9. Isaiah 28 and 9. Whom shall we teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. You got to get off this milk. Been on milk too long. Got to come off that breast. Put that bottle down. Pick up your sippy cup. Go to a straw. We got to start drinking. We got to start eating. We need a spoon and forks. We need knives. Got to cut it up. We need some meat. Been getting milk too long. The milk spoiled on your stomach. Make you vomit it out. Throw it up. Yeah, that's what happened. So we're gonna close this one down. You know, the last one we did, it was over an hour, 16 minutes. And, you know, we talking about attention span, but I tell you one thing, time is not waiting on your attention. If your attention span is not as long, it's going to keep moving. We find the things that we enjoy and that we want to involve ourselves in, we make time for that. But just in mirror it down. See? And see how I'm going to close it. Look at how I'm closing it down. I asked the question, find the answer to what I just asked you in verse 2. If God created everything and everything is good that he created on day 1 and all the way down to day 6 to where he said it was very good, and then we say God created the heavens He created heaven and earth. And then we get to verse 2, and it said, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Even until the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, the earth was chaotic. So of all that good that he created, then how did verse 2 get thrown in there? You gonna be able to explain it? Okay, then. Y'all come back at me. Come back at me then. But it's something you better think about. It's something you need to know. We're going to come back at you with a part 2. We're going to discuss this further. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I told you we just going to deal with verse 1 and 2. I did read a lot of scriptures, but I had to do that for a reason. So we still dealing with 1 and 2. We trying to see what happened. So, get back at me. Comment. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, take that slash off that bell, man, and tune in. Come on, talk back to me, because this one was real. And I'm going to keep going, and we're going to keep it real. Until I see you again, K and J is about to tune out, and we're going to end this and say, like, what the flux? I'm out of here.